In 1975, which depressingly was 39 years ago, John Rizzo was working for the U.S. Customs Service when he decided to try and join the CIA. What ensued was a fascinating and consequential career spanning 3 decades as a CIA lawyer. He served as the liaison between Congress and the CIA during the Iran-Contra affair, and later became well known for his involvement with the so-called torture tapes. He has written eloquently about his career in the critically acclaimed book, Company Man, 30 Years of Controversy and Crisis in the CIA. Many excellent reviews, but this one stood out. A reviewer said about the book, as insider looks go, this one is about as close up as you can get. Given the security threats we face right now from ISIS and the Brotherhood of Islamo-fascist terrorists and their barbaric medieval methods of slaughter and torture, and our need for sound intelligence to counter that threat, we're particularly honored and grateful to have him speak with us this evening.
One of the reasons I decided to write a book, obviously I had never written a book before, a memoir. There are really a couple of reasons. One, of course, is that I'm a lawyer. I was a lawyer at CIA for a long, long time. And I don't think certainly the general population ever associates to this day CIA with lawyers. I mean, that CIA has that pulp fiction image in movies and novels about being this run-amok, monolithic organization, does whatever it does, regardless of what happens, and just an instrument of institutional mayhem for 40 years. That's really not true. I joined CIA as a young guy, having known nothing about it, having had no connection to CIA, knowing no one from CIA. But the one thing that came to me, even in my relative youth, back in the late 70s when I was there, was that CIA, and this trait continued throughout my career, CIA really does care. The people in CIA care about upholding the law and not violating the law. I'm talking about the U.S. law, of course. Espionage, by its very nature, violates the laws of foreign countries, and every country has an intelligence service, and every country understands that, and sort of an unwritten rule. But CIA, in my experience, is unique in the role and the power, the influence that lawyers have in the day-to-day operations of the agency. So there had never been a book like that written, so I thought that it might offer a unique perspective, and for those who be interested in the outside, a new perspective on really what CIA is like beyond the beyond the hyperbole and the canards, what it really is like as an organization. The other reason I decided to write is that I joined in 1975, which was I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the birth of the modern CIA, the modern intelligence community, by which I mean the Congressional Oversight Committees, the House and Senate Intelligence Committees were created that year. The first executive order by a president setting forth the regulations, guidelines about intelligence community collection activities came out that year. A whole slew of internal regulations that I became involved in happily early on, setting forth CIA's dealings and relations henceforth with the U.S. intelligence, the U.S. media community, academic community, corporate community. All of that, I was so fortunate to be on the cusp of that. And I was also fortunate to be either a participant or more often a key major figure in all of the controversies and crises that CIA was involved in during the late 70s, 80s, 90s. up to and, of course, through September 11, 2001. As karma and fate would have it, I had just risen to the position of CIA chief legal advisor 1 month after 9/11. So all of those fateful, momentous days, that period of national dread and crisis, I was the point man for all of the unprecedented legal issues CIA had to contend with. And as we all know, and you all recall, the imperative in those first months and even first 3 years perhaps after 9/11 attacks was from the public, from the Congress, unanimous. Do not let this happen again. Do whatever it takes to protect our country from another catastrophic attack. Which is where my career, I had been happily under the radar for 25 years when it was in those years and those decisions I had to make, because there was no alternative, no lawyerly obfuscation allowed in those times, that caused me involuntarily become not just a public figure for the first time, but a notorious public figure. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that I am the guy who first heard about the CIA proposed enhanced interrogation program from my clients in the counterterrorism section of CIA. Came up one afternoon in late March of 2002 and laid out the techniques that they wanted to and they thought were absolutely necessary in order to glean information from the high-level terrorists we had just begun to capture on the battlefield. The first one is a particularly repellent character named Abu Zubaydah. I had never heard of the term waterboarding as these techniques were described to me. I had been at CIA long enough to see when something the CIA was about to do was bound to get us in trouble one way or the other. These things I knew as soon as I heard them, had trouble written all over them. And I was chief legal advisor then, I could have easily, I think, stopped them before this idea even got out of the CIA building. No one else in the government knew about them at that point. But I did not. And that was a fateful decision. As I say, it would make me ultimately a public figure, a controversial public figure. And I'm not sure I intuitively knew I'd become a public figure, but I knew that that this program, one way or the other, was a whole new unprecedented departure for CIA in my career. And as I say, I could have vetoed them. The reason I did not veto them is that, well, first of all, time was of the essence. Flashback to those early months of 2002, everyone assumed it wasn't a question of if the U.S. would be hit again with an attack, but when and how. In the interim, we had the shoe bomber incident, we had the anthrax attacks. I mean, the nation was in a state of absolute dread and shock. I had to take a walk around the building at CIA because I didn't have the luxury of farming this out for extensive legal analysis. I had no idea what the torture statute meant. Mercifully, I had never had to deal with it in my previous 25 years. But I ultimately decided, when I say ultimately, by the time I got back from my walk smoking my cigar, to let the program proceed. Because honestly, I had envisioned in my head a nightmare scenario where I vetoed these techniques. And our experts had told me they had come up with these techniques because Mr. Zubaydah, the first major high-level al-Qaeda operative in custody, these were the only techniques that could get him to talk. And he was not talking, and our experts were convinced he was holding back. Zubaydah made no bones about the fact he was holding back, that he knew what our people wanted to know about when the next attack would be, and we couldn't make him talk. So that was the situation I was confronted with. So I did not want to be the one, frankly, who preemptorily ended the program before it began. And I envisioned a scenario where the attack came a week or two later, thousands are lying in rubble or in the streets. Zebeda would be telling his interrogators, see, I knew about this one all along, you guys could not make me talk. And I would know after all that deep down that I was at least partially responsible for that set of horrific circumstances repeating it themselves again. So I decided to proceed, notwithstanding all of my trepidations, both about what this meant for the agency, for the country, and frankly for myself. From whence that decision came, ultimately resulted in the Justice Department issuing what have become euphemistically and pejoratively known as the torture memos. We all have seen these now. They were declassified courtesy of the incoming Obama administration, 2009, and they were all addressed to me, and laying out in all the graphic detail each of the techniques, how they were to be applied, and all of that. And that, as we all know, that program became increasingly controversial as the times, as September 2001 receded into history. This is understandable human nature. People's, at least some large segments of this country, I'm talking about the Congress and the media, forgot about the horror, the terror, the threat, and all of a sudden it became, whereas after 9/11 was protect us at all costs, by 2004, 2005 it became, well, what are you guys up to anyway? What have you been doing? How can you do this? And that led to, well, I don't have to tell this group, all of the emotional accusations. It wound up costing me my career. I was nominated in 2006 by President Bush to be the general counsel, which is a presidential appointment, Senate confirmation. I was naive. I thought I was a career CIA lawyer. I was not political. Bush White House never asked me what my political affiliation was. I thought this would be that I would not be this, the cliche of the partisan political hack being parachuted in from the outside. And notwithstanding all my years at CIA, I was naive because I became a political foil, and ultimately a casualty, as the New York Times put it, of the great national debate over the morality, legality of the CIA interrogation program. So that's all background. I would just bring this up. I bring this up now because I've been out of CIA, retired at the end of 2009, and what do we have today? Al-Qaeda. Did anyone ever think Al-Qaeda would be viewed as a relatively moderate force in the terrorism arena? Yeah. We now have ISIS. I worry about the U.S. government's capacity, the administration's capacity, willingness to step up again, not after a catastrophic attack, but maybe before the next catastrophic attack, which by all accounts, I don't have any inside information anymore, but these guys are planning something, and they're going to plan something. And this government does not have, among other things, any kind of viable interrogation program left. President Obama banished the enhanced interrogation program 2 days into office in January 2009. And if U.S. Special Forces, I hope U.S. Special Forces will somehow get involved over there, if they capture a high-level ISIS operative like we did after 2011, the entire scope of their ability to question someone like that is the Army Field Manual. That governs everyone in the U.S. government, CIA, the military, everyone. Now you can't kill. I think one thing we've learned in the years after 9/11 is that you can't kill them all. You cannot kill them all. There'll always be more. And so we can, and this government can do drones. They can do airstrikes of any means to kill ISIS figures. But you can't get intelligence from a dead man. You can't learn about the next attacks, all the other plots and plans. And I really do fear that we are in a perilous situation today. And not to close my remarks by being overly cynical. You know, the American people are wonderful. I mean, we're a wonderful country, wonderful people. But I worry that a reassessment of all the implications of these post 9/11 reforms, both in the interrogation arena and the intelligence collection arena, that have been promulgated over the last several years, I worry that there won't be any real reassessment unless and until there is another catastrophic attack on this country, and that is I view that with a certain sense of foreboding. And when that attack happens, I promise you, Congress, the media, the public will all demand, why didn't you guys stop it? How come you didn't stop it? You guys are too risk averse. What were you doing? You know, I say I don't mean to end my remarks on that cynical note, but I do worry.